Unless you're already vegan, you won't want to touch any Canadian bacon after you hear about the video PETA just exposed, the deaths before the slaughter in one of Canada's biggest hog farms. Next on the PETA Podcast. Welcome to the PETA Podcast. I'm Emil Guillermo, your host for this behind-the-scenes look at PETA, the largest animal rights organization in the world. Here we talk to the key players at PETA and the movement and ask them about how animal rights change their lives and how they stay motivated to make the world a better place for the animals. On today's episode, PETA exposes what happened in a British Columbia factory hog farm, where pregnant sows are confined to a cage so cramped newborn piglets can't be cared for.
And so these piglets die helplessly. No one comes to end their suffering. Their mothers can't do anything for them. And in fact, their more viable, healthier peers are left to watch their litter mates perish very slowly and in agony amid filth and desperately unnatural conditions.
Dan Paden, PETA's Associate Director of Evidence Analysis, on the video of the Excelsior Hog Farm in Abbotsford, British Columbia. It should be enough to make you go vegan. But first, thanks again for joining us here at the PETA Podcast. This is episode 66 in our second season of shows. Please share a link with friends. Let them know the animals have a voice on the PETA Podcast. And if you've just found us, welcome. And keep binging. There's lots to listen to on the PETA Podcast. With the first Saturday in May upon us, that means it's time for the Kentucky Derby, the one day people actually care for horse racing, but not necessarily for the horses. After 23 horse deaths at Santa Anita, PETA has worked to remove the cruelty in racing, but in doing so, the industry has been exposed as possibly obsolete. Check out the horse racing episodes of the PETA Podcast, shows number 60 and 59, and listen to next week's episode 67 for more on the fight to end the cruelty of horse racing. Remember, if you're on Apple Podcasts, don't forget to rate and review the show. It helps the algorithm know that PETA has a podcast on the issues important to you. There's also a link to a survey in our show notes. If you're so inclined, we'd love to hear your feedback. Now, if you really want to help the animals, you can always hit the Donate Now button at PETA.org. And if you're high-tech and have Amazon's Alexa, it's as easy as saying, "Alexa, donate to PETA." And now to our episode. PETA exposed a pig farm, Excelsior Hog Farm in Abbotsford, British Columbia, with an eyewitness video of dead piglets and lame, dying pigs. Dan Paden, who evaluates evidence for PETA's investigation, says if you're not already vegan, it will make you think twice about eating Canadian bacon. I began my conversation asking how the video was obtained.
I'd say the majority of our investigations and of the footage that we end up releasing actually have their genesis in a complaint or in a whistleblower calling PETA from this operation or that operation and saying, look, I'm seeing awful things being done to animals, typically also to the workers, to the staff, because, you know, these corporations don't care about workers and humans any more than they really do about animals. And then we do what we can to expose the reality in that facility. And that's how this particular footage came about. This footage from this hog farm in British Columbia was just sent to us unsolicited out of the blue by someone who had captured the footage, requested anonymity, which PETA takes very seriously and which we understand and we have a long tradition of respecting and working with. And we do our best, you know, within whatever conditions the videographer may wish to have in place to publish the footage and, you know, raise awareness among consumers and law enforcement and industries as to what's actually going on behind closed doors.
All right, so you got footage from the Excelsior Hog Farm, and this is significant because it's owned in part by a fairly big guy in Canada, Ray Benedict, who is a member of the board of directors of the British Columbia Pork Producers Association. So this is not some smallish hog farm. It comes from it's an established one. And so you got someone who was able to take footage there and send it to you, or did you actually have an investigator there as well?
No, we didn't have anybody there ourselves at all. The footage that we released last week was just provided to us. I took a look at it. I saw, what I thought were violations of provincial law there protecting animals. I saw pork industry standard housing of animals, which is legal, but nonetheless cruel and causes animals to suffer immensely. And as you said, this farm, being partly owned by a man who sits on the board of directors for the province's board of pig farmers, it's also a supplier to a pretty prominent slaughterhouse out there, and it has been held up as emblematic of the very best that the British Columbia pig farming industry has to offer. And the video we released is about 2 minutes, and I think it takes about 2 seconds for the average person to look at and say, if this is the best that this industry can offer animals, I'd hate to imagine the worst. And thankfully, most people, when they see it, they don't want to have anything to do with eating pigs, period.
The detail, people can go see the video at PETA.org, but just to describe some of the things, there are dead piglets, lame and dying pig. This is found on Abbotsford Pig Farm, which is part of the, that Abbotsford is in British Columbia. It's the Excelsior Hog Farm. But tell me about those images. Dead piglets? Little baby pigs?
Yeah, dead piglets. So, a lot of listeners will probably understand that mother pigs, or sows as they're called, are kept in very restrictive gestation crates for the majority of their lives. They're barely wider than their bodies. They're not much longer than their bodies are, from the tip of their nose to what remains of their tail and in the back end. The animals are kept there for the vast majority of their pregnancy, and about a week before they're slated to give birth, they're moved into even more restrictive crates, which are called farrowing crates, and it's there that their most recent litter of piglets, I wouldn't even say it is birthed, because it's not even giving birth. It's more just the next round of production for that animal in the so-called farmer's eyes. It's the next litter to come out of her to fatten and put on a truck 6 months later and send off to a date at the slaughterhouse. And in those farrowing crates, you'll see on the video that many piglets were obviously suffering, obviously in pain. And these crates are so restrictive that the mothers can't nuzzle or tend to their young. They are locked into these crates. They can barely stand up. They certainly can't move side to side. And so these piglets die helplessly. No one comes to end their suffering. Their mothers can't do anything for them. And in fact, their more viable, healthier peers are left to watch their litter mates perish very slowly and in agony amid filth and desperately unnatural conditions. All this happens on metal slatted floors. There's no soil in sight. There's obviously no sunshine in sight. There's no fresh air. It's a systematically cruel way of confining and starting animals' miserable lives off.
You're describing how these pregnant sows are forced to give birth in these farrowing crates. Is there a way to make these farrowing crates better? If this is supposed to be the ideal condition for pregnant sows, is there like a prescribed amount of space, or is this worse really than it should have been in terms of, give them, 5 more inches this way and 5 more inches that way? Or is there any way to make the farrowing crates better, or are they just by design and definition just cruel and unusual.
Yeah, everything that's on that video in terms of the farrowing crate is perfectly legal. I mean, the British Columbia pork industry has made a big deal and patted itself on the back, frankly, for promising to phase out the gestation crates by 2024. But even after that date, right now, even in 2050, for instance, those farrowing crates will still be legal. So there is no real impetus there to spare mother pigs and piglets that awful experience. Certainly more space would be better, giving these animals a chance to build a nest, which is something that they would do were they given the opportunity, would be better. But it would come back ultimately to something that PETA emphasizes over and over, which is that there is no such thing as humane meat unless it's vegan, because ultimately you can make an animal's raising and so-called life less and less cruel, but ultimately that animal's flesh is not going to end up on someone's plate unless she's hauled in a very stressful way to a slaughterhouse, probably through extreme weather, probably shot in the head with a captive bolt gun or electrocuted, and then hung upside down and have her throat slit. And no animal, no matter how she or he was raised, obviously wants to endure that. And there is no reason to put any animal through that in today's day and age when, thankfully, there are healthier and truly humane foods very widely available.
Well, once you describe that process whereby if they survive the farrowing crates, then they go on to this, down the path of what it means to be factory farmed. It's almost as if maybe it's a blessing to die at the farrowing crate in some ways.
Yeah, I couldn't help when I was watching that footage, when I see these young animals who are dying the day they're born, who maybe some of them were stillborn, for instance. I mean, some of those animals may have never been conscious or alive outside of their mother's womb. And frankly, Earth had really very little to offer those animals. I mean, there really was no hope for those animals in today's day and age. And the fact that they were spared 6 months in dungeon-like conditions, that they were spared having their tails cut off without painkillers, if they were male, that they were spared having their testicles ripped out of their bodies, again, without any anesthesia. They were spared all of that and so much more. In a very odd way, they are the so-called lucky ones. But, in about 5 days since we released this footage, I think more than 30,000 people have already used that footage to call on the slaughterhouse that kills these animals to reconsider its ties to that farm. And I think that's the real hope here, is that more and more people who see footage like this will stop eating pigs, will go vegan, and will take action in behalf of those animals so that the lucky ones are not animals who are not born at these farms. The lucky ones are the pigs who are born to their mothers in natural settings and who never have to even exist in any shape or form in a factory farm or other setting where they're being raised for profit.
Now, once again, we're talking about the Excelsior Hog Farm, which is in Abbotsford, British Columbia. I mean, PETA works all over the world, in the United States and Canada. This Excelsior Hog Farm sends pigs to Johnston's, which is a Chilliwack-based slaughterhouse that supposedly claims to work only with suppliers raising pigs under a clear standard of care. So there's a slight public stance that, hey, we're trying to do the right thing, right, for meat. That this is what the pig farmers and the slaughterhouses seem to say. But this video exposes that as just pure baloney, right?
Yeah, exactly right. Pun intended. It really is. It's just another claim that we see made, throughout North America, around the world, frankly. These industries that their only interest in raising and killing animals is the almighty dollar or whatever form of currency they might be trading in there. They know that consumers are more and more aware of and concerned by how animals are treated if they're going to be used by human beings. And in order to placate people and frankly to pull the wool, so to speak, over someone's eyes, they trade in this language about we care about animals and, we only work with suppliers who meet this and this and this criteria. I mean, even after this video was released, the pork industry and a veterinarian in British Columbia still stood by this farm as emblematic of proper care for pigs being raised for food. I mean, they looked at this video and said, this is proper, this is acceptable. Yes, this is how we do it.
And yet you said you got about 30,000 people to email the both Johnston's, which is the slaughterhouse, and maybe the Excelsior Hog Farm as well, to stop doing what they're doing, because these pigs are the products that they sell goes to retailers across British Columbia, like Choices Markets, Super Value, places that under this pretense that maybe the food is being produced in this humane way, but there is no humane way.
There is no humane way, and it goes back to something, for instance, that we exposed with Whole Foods several years ago. They are notorious for promoting what they call happy meat or humane meat, and they're trying to convince themselves and customers that there is a way that you can care about animals and still eat them. That's a fabulous myth, but it's just that. It's just a myth. It's a pipe dream. If you truly care about animals, the only way to eat is vegan. Otherwise, you are subsidizing the deprivation of a very sensitive, intelligent animal of most, if not all, of what is natural and important to him or her. And you're also obviously depriving him or her of their life, the ability to be who they were created to be and not simply a product or a commodity.
And there are so many people out there now who eat meat, who are not vegan. They'll claim. I know this one guy a very popular podcaster, who says, "Hey, look, I'm a carnivore. I'm a hypocrite. I know it. I asked my wife why I eat meat, and she said because it tastes good. And and then I fall for it, and I eat it. This is this podcaster talking." And I reached out to the podcaster and said, "Look, you're smart enough and concerned about this for a reason. It's because you understand these are feeling, sentient, beings, and they deserve to live their lives." And he was talking about a cow and a fish. He wasn't talking about a pig, but if he saw this video, he would see that there is nothing good about being a hypocrite when it comes to being a carnivore who doesn't want to kill, doesn't want to, get his hands dirty in terms of, morally about, being involved in the killing of this food. And he justifies it by, look, I'm eating it all. I eat what I fish. I eat what that's a sort of a rationalization for the cruelty. But all he has to do is see a video like this video that on PETA.org about the Excelsior Hog Farm. But what do you say to those people who are those willing, hypocritical carnivores who feel, but they divorce themselves from those feelings?
I know everyone is at their own point on their journey towards being a better person and making this world a kinder place. And I think every step that someone takes towards that end goal is something that deserves support and deserves respect. I mean, I was not born vegan. I ate animals quite happily until I was about 20 years old, and I chose to go vegetarian for health reasons. I very quickly, in trying to be vegetarian in a healthy way, learned about the atrocities inflicted on animals for food and for clothing and experimentation and for entertainment's purpose and so forth. And I implemented that in my life, and I made decisions based on that. It's not, well, it gets to be an easier thing to do every single day that passes. I mean, the world is an infinitely more vegan place today than it was yesterday, and certainly than it was 20 years ago when I became vegan, and 20 years prior to that, when PETA started. And that's thanks to PETA in large part, obviously.
Does a video like this of what goes on at the Excelsior Hog Farm, which they could see at PETA.org, if they see that, does that make the change happen? Does that put them over the top where they say, I can't be as hypocritical as I was. I can't condone what I'm seeing on the video. I've got to stop eating meat.
It absolutely does for countless people. It absolutely does. I think every one of these videos turns countless people vegetarian or vegan. And I think that's more important for animals' sake and for the long-term win for them than, this little change by the industry or that, single misdemeanor charge that might be filed. I mean, all those things are important, but ultimately the way that animals are going to be spared, all that this video and others like it show is when people change their consumer habits. That's what prompts so many people to be vegan. And there's a saying, I think, that sometimes individuals need to hear or see something 7 times, before it really sinks in. And sometimes maybe people need to see a video like this 7 times or 7 different videos before it finally strikes them in the heart and they have the courage to change. But it's the right thing to do, obviously for animals, but certainly also for your health and also for the future of this planet, which is quite in peril.
The video's out at PETA.org. People can see it, but these conditions still exist. They're still happening at the farm, at this Excelsior hog farm in Abbotsford, British Columbia. And they're still producing and still giving their sending pigs to Johnston's, which is a slaughterhouse there in Canada. And so people should stop buying these products and they can go to PETA.org and they can send a message to Johnston's and to the Excelsior Hog Farm, right?
Absolutely. And it's business as usual at that farm. And frankly, what's on that video is business as usual at thousands of pig farms across North America and beyond. And the ultimate way to spare pigs all that pain and suffering that's on that video is simply by choosing to stop eating them.
And then what is PETA asking for the authorities there in Canada to do? I know you've approached the British Columbia Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. You approached law enforcement up there to do something about it? Is there something legally that is yet to be done?
Yes. So the SPCA has opened an investigation of the farm for what we suspect are violations of the Provincial Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act, which essentially makes it a crime and or a civil offense to leave an animal in distress, including a pig, leave her lying on her side to die slowly, as what was depicted on that video. So we have high hopes for that investigation, that will certainly intervene soon for the animals who are on that farm now, and to make sure that they're not left to languish and to suffer in agony.
But in the meantime, people should just go to PETA.org, see the video, share it with their friends, and maybe the best thing that can happen is if a large percentage of people who see the video then stop eating meat. I mean, that's one outcome. And then the other one is for other people, if they see something like this happening where they work or if they witness it, to capture it on video, to send it into PETA and be a whistleblower.
Absolutely. And interestingly, with the whistleblower activity, I mean, earlier this year during the government shutdown, the USDA was unable to field calls from people within various industries who were concerned about the care of animals. And I think PETA, took that opportunity to remind everyone that for decades, we've had that hotline open. We've always been able to answer calls. And in fact, I'm honored to work beside people who speak to good people in various industries every single day about what concerns them. And we work and we take very seriously working with people to end cruelty and suffering that they're seeing and try to make things better for animals in the short term.
And what's the hotline number, Dan?
Well, they can just call 757-622-7382. That's 757-622-PETA, and they will get right in touch 24/7 if they need it with someone who knows that industry, who knows the issues that are typically spotted in that industry, and who can work with them to do the very best they can to end whatever might be going on for animals.
And who knows, you might get something like you did with this Abbotsford pig farm, which essentially came over the transom to PETA's doorstep, and it showed such cruelty. And maybe we'll be able to share it with the world, and they can make their own decision if they should go vegan or not.
That's exactly right. It's all about raising awareness and empowering people to do something if they feel so inclined. And I have faith that thousands of people will be eating far fewer pigs after they see this video.
All right, Dan Paden, thank you very much for joining us on the PETA Podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Dan Paden, PETA's Associate Director of Evidence Analysis on the Excelsior Hog Farm in British Columbia. See the video and read more at PETA.org. And that's our program for today. Hey, you can contact us at PETA.org. You can find me on Twitter at Emil Amok, that's EMILAMOK, or on amok.com. Once again, thank you for listening. Check out all our episodes on Apple Podcasts, where you can rate and review the show. It helps get the word out about the issues you care about. And don't forget, you can help the animals and PETA, especially if you have Amazon's Alexa. Just say, Alexa, donate to PETA. Our music is provided by CarbonWorks. Check them out on YouTube. Thanks for listening. Join us again next time for more insight into animal rights and the fight for a cruelty-free world on the PETA Podcast. I'm Emil Guillermo.